Alex stole my ideas and built his success on them while I watched my chances vanish. But I wasn't going to let it slide. By the end of it, Alex couldn't even meet my eyes. My name is Max. I'm 28, and to be completely honest, I've made one major mistake in life. I trusted people too much, especially my so-called best friend, Alex. We were the same age, both 28, and had been close like brothers since college. You know the type of friendship where you share everything, from drunken nights and embarrassing stories to the biggest dreams and business plans. We both had that burning ambition, to make it big, to get rich through a startup. I thought, with Alex by my side, we could conquer the world together. But as it turns out, your best friends can sometimes turn out to be the worst kind of enemies in disguise. That's how I ended up in this whole mess. At the beginning, things seemed perfect, smooth even. We'd spend hours in dingy coffee shops, drinking cheap coffee while brainstorming ideas that, in our minds, were destined to make us billionaires before we hit 30. Alex would always cheer me on, praising every thought I had with lines like, "Bro, you're a genius. This is going to blow up big time." And I, being the trusting and naive guy that I was, genuinely believed success was just around the corner. I didn't see any of it coming. Then, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, Alex vanished off the radar for a couple of weeks. He didn't return texts, didn't answer calls. Naturally, I thought maybe he was going through some personal stuff. Maybe he needed space or had met a girl who was now taking up all his time. You know how it is. What never even crossed my mind was that he would stab me in the back so ruthlessly. While I was sitting around worrying about him, he was out there stealing every single idea we had worked on together, presenting it all to the world as if it was solely his. The worst part? He didn't even have the decency to tell me. I didn't hear it from him. Instead, I found out through some random acquaintance. I'll never forget that moment. I ran into a guy I barely knew who said, "Dude, have you heard? Alex is about to launch this insane tech startup. People are saying it's going to be huge." I tried to play it cool, thinking he must be mistaken. But when I went online and checked, there it was. Our entire business concept, right down to the most minor details, now being marketed as his brilliant idea. I felt like the ground had been pulled from under me. It wasn't just a simple betrayal. It felt like getting stabbed in the back, and then having the knife twisted deeper for good measure. Seeing him take credit for everything we had both poured months of work into was unbearable. But that wasn't even the end of it. No, this was just the opening act in what I now call Alex, the Complete Jerk Chronicles. It hit me like a freight train. So sudden and so hard, it knocked the wind out of me. Alex and I had been sitting in our usual spot, a cozy corner at our favorite cafe, sipping coffee and doing what we always did. Talk about the future, our startup, and how we were going to take over the market. It felt like one of those perfect moments where everything seems possible. We were deep in conversation, strategizing about our big ideas. I remember laying it all out for him. The detailed plans on how we'd promote the product on social media, what kind of ad campaigns we'd run, and how we'd catch the market's attention. Every little detail was carefully thought out, and I was sharing it all with Alex because, in my mind, we were a team. Best friends. We were totally in sync, each as excited as the other about our inevitable success. He was fully engaged, listening intently, nodding his head in agreement, throwing in a few suggestions, and giving me those reassurances that made me believe we were on the same wavelength. "This is going to be huge," he said, smiling. I felt like we were both on the same ride, aiming for the stars, driven by the same hunger for success. And then, just like that, a week later, Alex disappeared. No warning, no explanation. He was just gone. I tried calling, texting, leaving voicemails, but there was nothing but silence. At first, I thought maybe something bad had happened to him. Maybe he'd gotten sick, or he'd decided to go on a spontaneous vacation to clear his head. I had all kinds of excuses running through my mind. I was genuinely concerned. I mean, this was Alex, my best friend and business partner. What could possibly have happened? It was so out of character for him to ghost me like that. The more time passed, the more I worried. Days turned into weeks, and still, no sign of Alex. It wasn't just frustrating, it was baffling. I even started considering the worst-case scenarios. I was ready to call his family to check if everything was okay. My head was spinning with possibilities. And then, out of nowhere, came the bombshell. I ran into a mutual friend one afternoon, just by chance, and he casually dropped a line that would flip my world upside down. "Hey, Max, did you hear about Alex's new startup? It's blowing up, man." I remember standing there, frozen for a moment, as the words registered. A startup? What startup? I had no clue what he was talking about. The confusion must have shown on my face because he went on to explain, talking about how Alex had just launched this new tech project that was getting a ton of buzz. In that instant, everything clicked. I realized Alex hadn't disappeared because of some personal crisis, or because he needed space. He'd vanished because he was busy taking every single idea we had discussed, my ideas, and using them to launch his own startup. Without me. It was like getting the rug pulled out from under me just as I was about to take off running. All those plans, all that excitement, everything I'd worked for, was now being paraded around as his own success. I felt a deep, crushing sense of betrayal. It wasn't just about the startup or the ideas, it was about trust. I trusted him with everything, and he had stabbed me in the back in the most calculated way possible. My world flipped upside down so quickly, it felt like I might spin off into space. Have you ever had that moment where everything you've worked for, every single plan, dream, and opportunity, slips through your fingers only to land in someone else's hands? And not just anyone, but your former best friend? It's a gut-wrenching feeling. All the investments I had lined up, the calls from potential partners, the promising meetings that were supposed to be mine. Suddenly, they were heading toward Alex. It was as if he had single-handedly created everything I had poured my heart and soul into. It wasn't just about the business or the lost opportunities. It was about seeing someone take what you believed was your future and parade it around as their own triumph. That's when the raging volcano mode ignited inside me. But outwardly, I tried to keep my cool, even as my insides churned with fury. Friends, of course, did what friends do. They tried to calm me down, throwing out the usual reassurances. "Hey man, relax. It's just business. You'll bounce back from this." Yeah, right. Easier said than done. Try telling that to the part of my brain that was screaming, "Make him pay. Make him regret ever crossing you." I tried to plaster a smile on my face, nodding like their words were helping. But inside, I was a storm, brewing darker and angrier by the second. Every inch of me wanted to retaliate, to strike back in a way that would leave Alex reeling, that would make him think twice before ever stealing someone's ideas again. But here was the kicker. I didn't have a plan. Just raw, unfiltered rage. The kind of rage that blinds you, clouds your thinking, and makes you want to act on impulse. My hands literally itched with the desire to lash out, to do something, anything, that would hurt him as much as he'd hurt me. I knew, though, that giving in to that first fiery impulse would probably ruin everything I'd built. It would burn it all to the ground, and maybe take me down with it. You know how in movies, there's always that moment where the hero stands at a crossroads with two clear paths in front of them? One is the easy route, the burn-it-all path, where they act on their anger, torching everything in their way. The other is the harder, smarter route, where they take a deep breath, think it through, and come up with a real plan. Well, I was standing at that exact crossroads, and trust me, the burn-it-all-down option was looking incredibly tempting. I could already picture the satisfaction of watching Alex's smug smile fade as everything he'd stolen from me crumbled before his eyes. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the answer. That's when my brain kicked into overdrive, trying to find a loophole. I knew I needed something more than just blind revenge. I needed something strategic, something that would hit Alex where it hurt, but also allow me to come out on top. It wasn't enough to lash out. I needed to find a way to dismantle his success and reclaim what was rightfully mine. But damn, it was like trying to solve an impossible puzzle. Every idea I came up with seemed either too risky or too weak. My mind was a maze, twisting and turning, hunting for the perfect plan to take him down, but nothing was coming together. The problem with revenge is that it's not as easy as it looks in the movies. Sure, you can fantasize about it, but actually pulling it off? That's a different story. You need precision, patience, and most of all, the right timing. I knew that if I was going to make my move, it had to be flawless. There was no room for mistakes. But the longer I thought about it, the more complicated it seemed. Alex had put himself in a position of power, and I wasn't sure how to topple him without risking everything I still had left. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Alex switched into master manipulator mode. This guy didn't just steal my ideas, he decided to play the discredit Max game. And you know what? He almost pulled it off. He started telling everyone, investors, partners, mutual acquaintances, that he was the real brains behind everything. And me? Well, according to his version, I was just a leech riding on his brilliant ideas, trying to cash in on his talent. Seriously? I couldn't believe this guy was actually saying that, and with such confidence, like he was the genius of the century. Of course, people started distancing themselves from me like I was the plague. Investors who were about to sign deals with me suddenly began canceling meetings. "Sorry, Max, our plans have changed," they'd say, and I'd just laugh to myself. What plans? The plans I had given them. Everything was lined up, everything was brilliant, but now it was all falling apart. But the most epic moment was when I opened social media. And what do I see? Alex, this guy, celebrating his success. He actually posted photos with a fake smile, as if he'd just won the Olympic Games of business. "Hard work pays off," he wrote under his posts, holding a champagne glass with new friends surrounding him. I nearly spit my coffee onto my screen. "Seriously? Your work? You can't even make a decent cup of coffee!" He didn't just steal my ideas. No, he took it further. Step by step, he tore down my reputation. People really started to believe that it was his startup, and I was just some unlucky guy trying to ride on someone else's coattails. Investors stopped taking my calls. Partners started acting like I didn't exist. This wasn't just a punch, it was a free fall into an abyss. After weeks spent in the company of depression and rage, I realized one thing. I'm not the guy who just sits back and watches while someone like Alex walks away with the loot. No way, buddy. If you thought this was over, you were dead wrong. I decided I wasn't going to let him walk away unscathed. I was going to show everyone who really stood behind these ideas. The first thing I did was dig into my old messages. I hacked my own brain and started going over every detail. You know that feeling when you're trying to find a tiny piece of a puzzle, but you don't even know which box it came from? That was me, flipping through notes, going through old emails, chat screenshots, anything that could prove those ideas were mine and not his. It was like a detective investigation, but instead of a badge, I had coffee and sleepless nights. The problem was that Alex had already solidified his position. This guy didn't waste time. He had already signed contracts with several big companies. They'd invested in his project, and now he was riding high, while I was left on the sidelines, like some loser who didn't even get invited to the party. Nice move, Alex, I thought, gritting my teeth. But that didn't mean I was giving up. Oh no. I started building a plan. I collected every little thing, every message that could show Alex was nothing but a thief, not a genius. There was something thrilling about it, like I was playing chess with the devil and was about to checkmate him. But the further I went, the more I realized this wouldn't be easy. After all, the companies that had already signed deals with Alex didn't want to believe their brilliant new partner was just a fraud. They had already invested money, their reputation was on the line. And that's when I realized I was in for a much bigger fight. When I realized that talking wouldn't help, I took radical measures. I sued him. Oh yeah, I wasn't messing around. Alex clearly didn't see that coming. He probably thought I'd just sit quietly in the corner while he continued basking in his fake success. But no, my friend, I had other plans. When the day of the court came, his reaction was priceless. He sat there, looking at me like I had just announced I was going to colonize the moon. In his eyes, I could see, "Are you serious?" Oh yes, I was serious. This wasn't some champagne party, buddy. In court, he tried to turn it into a joke, like it was some kind of friendly dispute. "Oh, come on, guys. Max is just jealous of my success," he said with a grin, trying to play it cool. I could almost hear him laughing in his head, thinking everyone would raise their glasses to his brilliance. But his trick didn't work this time. My evidence was rock solid. I brought all the dirt to light. Emails, chat screenshots, call recordings, everything that proved I was the author of these ideas and that he had simply taken credit for someone else's work. The courtroom gasped when I laid out these facts. Alex's face dropped, like he had just been punched in the gut. He clearly hadn't expected me to come so prepared. The judge, by the way, was fantastic. After all the evidence was presented, he almost immediately made his decision. Alex's project must be stopped, and all contracts based on these ideas must be voided. That moment was so sweet, I could have watched it like my favorite movie scene. Alex sat there in complete silence, his face saying it all. He knew his game was over. Everything he'd bet on had crumbled. I walked out of the courtroom feeling like a champion, while Alex was left behind, holding the shattered remains of his empire. After the trial, Alex frantically tried to pick up the pieces of his fallen empire, and it was like watching a comedy show. You know those movies where the hero runs and everything explodes and collapses behind them? That was Alex, only without the heroism, just pure panic in his eyes. He thought he could rebuild his reputation, as if it were just a broken bicycle he could fix in a few minutes. But no, buddy, this was a full-blown disaster, and I had a front-row seat to it, though I forgot to bring the popcorn. The companies he had worked with started dropping him faster than anyone could say, "Game over." They didn't want to be associated with a guy who turned out to be a thief of other people's ideas. For me, it was like watching a spectacle. His former partners literally turning their backs and walking away without even looking back. "Sorry, Alex, but we're done here." And there he was, trying to explain, claiming it was all just a misunderstanding. Yeah, right. Who'd believe him after what had happened? Investors? Oh, that was a whole different story. They tore up their contracts faster than I could make a sarcastic joke about Alex's brilliant business plans. No one wanted to put money into a project built on lies and theft. For them, it wasn't just a risk. It was a big red self-destruct button. Alex tried calling them, explaining, but the answer was always the same. "No thanks, we're no longer interested." His voice probably sounded like a vacuum salesman who kept getting doors slammed in his face. But the most epic part was when clients started leaving. Yep, the very same clients who had once believed in his visionary ideas. They began canceling orders en masse and looking for alternatives. Alex, in desperation, tried everything. Discounts, bonuses, personal calls. But it was like trying to save a sinking ship with a plastic bucket. His startup collapsed faster than he could have imagined. It was like a domino effect. One piece fell, and the rest followed. And me? Well, I watched it all with great satisfaction. Not that I was vengeful, but seeing his greatness crumble into dust was incredibly gratifying. It was as if the universe was saying, "Max, enjoy this. You've earned it." After all that circus, my business started recovering faster than I could have imagined. You know how people suddenly realize they bet on the wrong horse? That's what happened with my former supporters. They finally figured out that I was the real brains behind the project, and they started coming back. It was like a movie scene where the hero returns to town, and everyone's like, "Wow, it's him, the real leader." I won't lie. It felt good to be back in the spotlight. But the sweetest moment was when the big investors, who had once rejected me, started knocking on my door again. It was like old friends who'd forgotten about me, and then suddenly said, "Hey, maybe we should work together after all." I kept them waiting, played it cool, but of course, I agreed. Because, well, money is always good, and I wasn't going to miss the chance to show everyone who the real boss was here. Investments started pouring in like a cornucopia. Contracts, deals, new partners, everything was going great. My startup, which had recently looked like a half-ruined fortress, suddenly became a shiny new skyscraper, and it was really cool. I didn't just get back on my feet, I soared. And all thanks to the fact that I didn't give up and didn't let Alex take my future away. 6 months after the trial, I could already boast millions in my bank account. A millionaire at 28. Not a bad business card, right? I was signing contracts with big players, working with the best, and my company was making a name for itself. It was a victory that's hard to describe. I wasn't just dreaming anymore. I was living the dream. And Alex? Well, what can I say? He was left with nothing. We no longer spoke, and honestly, I was totally fine with that. When I saw him accidentally at some events, he couldn't even look me in the eye. You could see that he knew his life had been destroyed by his own greed and betrayal. And you know what? I knew it.